today's topic, which is going to be mental well-being and how the lockdown is having an effect on us and what we're doing, what you're doing, more importantly, to stay in the most positive place that you can possibly stay within your mind, what you're doing, what's working for you. So before we get into that content, just want to do a couple of things. The first thing that I want to do is explain the point of Bunker Talk, right? Now, if you're listening or watching this for the first time, then thanks for being here. Let me know where in the world you're listening from and let me know how you're getting on. Let me also explain to you the reason that Bunker Talk exists. This is all about a forum, if you like, or a place, a broadcast where we can talk about some of the things that we're going through right now that we might feel like we're the only ones in the world that are feeling. Now, the reason I know this is because before the lockdown, it was extremely common with a lot of the clients and groups that I'm working with and have worked with. A lot of the time, we think we're the odd ones out. A lot of the time, we feel like we're the ones that haven't got it together, that we're the ones that are getting it wrong. And what we do is we tend to protect ourselves by not sharing that with anyone because we don't want to become vulnerable and we don't want to put ourselves into that position there where we show that weakness. And so we end up spiraling downwards into a worse place. And in particular, which is topical for today's talking point, our mental health declines because we beat ourselves up and we feel like we're the one that's getting it wrong, right? And Bunker Talk helps you to understand that you're not alone. If we only have one person share their thoughts, feelings, experiences tonight on this particular broadcast, then that's okay with me because that means that more people are going to see what that one person shares. And there will be someone, I know this because of the messages that I get, there will be someone out there who watches and thinks, do you know what? I'm not the odd one out. I'm not the only person that's feeling that. And it might just help somebody. We don't know what that might mean to someone. So I invite you to be honest and express yourself and share. So with that, I would like to know where you're from and or where you're tuning in from and what it is that you've been up to. I'm just going to move this out of the way here so we can see the comments. So hello from Moscow or Moscow. I call it Moscow, but I think it's more Moscow. Do let me know. Angelina, it's good to have you in the house again on Instagram. Dan is here on Facebook. Hello, Dan. How are you? How's it been? How have you been? Another week has gone. Can you believe it? Dan's tuned into every single one of these Bunker Talks. So thank you, Dan, for your commitment to the cause. Let me know what's new. Today, we're going to be discussing a couple of things. But before we do that, let's have a look at our first item on our Bunker Talk agenda. It is who deserves your appreciation. Every week we talk about who deserves our appreciation this week. And so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to share who it is that deserves your appreciation this week, whether it's a shout out to our key workers, our frontline workers in the NHS and social care, whether it's a shout out to a family member, whether it's someone or people who you really think deserve the credit. Like personally for me, it's people working in supermarkets and in shops that are helping to keep things moving. And, you know, that supply chain of food, if that was to disappear, things would get a whole lot worse, right? So those guys are also, in a way, putting themselves at risk every day. And we talked about this in great detail last week because they are interacting and coming across so many people at the shops, and not everyone is as good at adhering to the social distancing, whether it's fault of their own or not. So these people who are working in supermarkets, you know, they deserve a lot of credit. And so they get my shout out again today. Gary's in the house watching from Facebook. Hi, I'm watching from work. Gary, thanks for sending across how work is for you at the moment. Yeah, it's great that you and your colleagues are doing such great work in this time to keep things moving forwards and help people that need looking after and need extra care right now. So we know that every Thursday here in the UK, we step outside at 8 p.m. and we give a round of applause to everyone who works in care. And I've been outside, I think every time apart from one, I was able to get out there. And every week it's just a little bit more. You can just feel the emotion. It's just growing a bit more every time. And last time I was there, I was just reflecting on, that number that's growing every day. And of course, the most important thing about this period of our lives, this challenging time, is that we're able to stay safe, and we want our loved ones, people who we care about, to remain safe, and for the virus not to get hold of the people that we care about, right? So that number is increasing, and of course it will increase. Countries around the world, some countries have managed to stop that number, the death toll and the spread of the virus. Even I've got family in New Zealand, and they're celebrating the fact that they've had a few days now without any extra cases of the virus, which is great. I mean, it's a much smaller island than the UK, but it just shows that it can be done. So there's a lot of hope out there, and we've got to kind of keep spreading that, I suppose. So let's have a look at some of these comments here. I'm just going to move my friends on Instagram over slightly so I can see. Okay, Sarah says, Winton School have been great. So Winton School was a local school to Sarah and I, where we live here in Hampshire, in Andover in Hampshire. Winton School have been great. Daily information and contact from the school to help with education for our children. I've heard that as well. And if you're watching this and you've got kids and they're in school, how's it been? I mean, I'm grateful that my kids are almost Lincoln's 3.5, but they're young, so we're not homeschooling them to a curriculum as such, but what's that like? How are you getting on if you're homeschooling your kids? I mean, come on, we're 6 weeks in here. It's not like you've been doing it for a week or two. This is a month and a half nearly. How does it feel? Is it getting easier? Is it getting harder? Like, I can imagine there are a lot of parents that are finding it difficult, and maybe they find it difficult on an academic level because, man, some of those questions, even like the early years in school, are quite hard. I'm not afraid to admit it. I've seen some of the work that friends of mine are doing with their kids. It's pretty high-tech stuff. But also, we can feel a bit guilty if we have to balance a few things up. Maybe we're working from home as well and homeschooling the kids. So if you are, let me know and share what that's like for you, because you can guarantee there'll be somebody watching or listening that is in that same boat and is maybe not feeling as good as you are, and could do with a little bit of extra support around that. So let's have a look. Dan, I've been looking after my daughter, and I get my first overnight stay at mine with her. I've switched off the worry and focus on keeping myself busy. So Dan shared previously on a Bunker Talk that he has his daughter who lives with him sometimes, stays with him sometimes, and lives with his previous partner, her mother, obviously. And that must be extremely challenging when all you want to do is care for her and see her. And so when you have that time, it must be really amazing just to be spending that time with your daughter. So mate, I'm over the moon for you that you're going to have that experience there. And I guess it's difficult for parents who don't live together and aren't together anymore, because there's that logistical element to things as well. And it's very confusing for these kids too. We've had a few tantrums, as I mentioned. My son's 3.5, but he'll occasionally get really angry, and then he'll just come out with something really random to do with the lockdown. Like the other day, he got a bit grumpy and a bit angry, and he just sat down and he was like, I don't want to go anywhere when the coronavirus is finished. And we were just like, well, no one was actually talking about that, buddy, but sure, fine. But it's having, it's playing on our kids, because they don't understand things like we do, and they don't know their full scale of emotion. So when they feel like they're off center, they start acting strange, and that's because they don't understand what it is that's causing them to feel like that. Very important that we're explaining as much as we can to these children, to make sure that they don't have, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, parenting in an ideal world is terribly difficult in terms of avoiding emotional triggers later in life. It's almost impossible to get that 100%. We've got to do our best, right? But in these situations, these circumstances now, there are a lot of risk factors and a lot of potential triggers, emotional triggers, that our children will have later in life, because we build our awareness, our understanding of the world on an emotional level between the ages of 0 and 7. So younger children right now that had an idea of what reality looked and felt like, and now that's changed, are also seeing their parents changing very drastically from moment to moment. This can have an effect on them later life. So, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself as a parent. It's hard, but be aware of it, because if there is an action that you can control that is blatantly obvious, like getting angry, like showing that anger, being snappy with them for no fault of their own because you've heard something on the news or looked at your social media and it's triggered you from something you had in earlier life, right? It's kind of strange as how it all goes around. But we pass these drama patterns onto our children if we're not careful. And so we have to understand that and be consciously aware of it, because when we become consciously aware of it, we're able to break that natural passing on of that insecurity, that drama, and we help them understand by explaining things to them. You might not get the response you want, but you've got to give it your best shot. That's what it's about for me, parenting. But Dan, thank you for sharing that. I've had a few comments coming through here, so thank you. Angelina has joined us here on Facebook. Greetings from, I'm going to say it again, Moscow in Russia. Everything happens much worse than in many countries, and most of all, I worry about people in general. I suffered from all sides, work, business, and now I concentrate on my fitness, my sports, and my studies. Yeah, great stuff. There it is there for you guys to see. So we've mentioned before, one of the best things to do right now, if you cannot do the things that you were doing, is to think about what it is you can do that will improve your physical, mental, or emotional well-being. There will be stuff that you can do, whether it's your exercise, eating healthy, whether it's learning, whether it's broadening your horizon on a particular topic of interest, whether it's reaching out and speaking to people and making contact with people that you haven't spoken to for a while, and learning a bit more and asking better questions within yourself to understand yourself more and raise your levels of social and self-awareness. There's always something that you can do to help move things forwards for you. So thanks for sharing that, Angelina. You're doing great. You're all doing great. Everyone's doing great. Come on, this is weird. This is strange. 6 weeks. I think we're all doing great. I think we should all give ourselves a round of applause. You know, it's if you'd have said to us before all of this, hey, how do you feel about doing 6 weeks? You can't do anything that you enjoy doing that's outside of your own house, and you're also not going to be able to do all these things that you like doing. You'd be like, nah, no, that's just not going to be good. But here we are. We're here and we're doing our best. And so I think everyone deserves a round of applause for that. Sana, good to hear from you. Good to see you live in Sweden. We've got a global audience once again here. We've got people in Russia, Sweden, and the UK, Stockholm. And we have not had any lockdown, but have had restrictions, and we listen to the government. So Sana, it'd be great to sort of know what you think about that in terms of the comparison, because there's obviously more to it than that. As you say, you listen to the government. So like, what's the biggest difference then from what you can see and what you can hear and the things that you gather from what's going on over in the UK? What are the biggest differences in comparison? It'd just be interesting to understand. I'm someone who watches the daily announcements, the press conferences every day without fail. I like to go straight to source to get my information. I don't like to rely on media companies or people's statuses on social media to get my information. I prefer to go straight to source, make sense of it myself. And so it'd be interesting to know, because one thing I'd like for Bunker Talk is for us to be able to talk about these things and discuss it with no agenda other than just to help understand things. So I think it would really help if we knew, what's it like over there in Sweden and what are the main differences in comparison. Gary, he's saying to Dan, enjoy your time together. I love that. There's two of our Bunker Talk regulars there, Dan and Gary. You two, thanks for tuning in every week. It's amazing that you're here again. I really appreciate it, and I hope that it's serving you and you're getting something out of this. But Dan and Gary here, Dan's shared his story with us about his daughter, and Gary's saying enjoy your time together. I love it. Angelina, back again. I have no children, but I have friends, and I know how difficult it is. I help my friends with English and Russian for free on Skype. When their parents work, their children call me. We do homework and talk about their interests, toys, and there we go. And now I learn a lot of new heroes. I like it. So like what superheroes and stuff that they play with, like their toys. So that's really cool. So Angelina is over in Russia. She's someone who helps to teach English language to people who want to learn English over in Russia. And she doesn't have children, but she is getting on Skype with the kids of her friends to help them learn English. Wow, that's such a nice thing to do. And I mean, as a parent who's got like kids here, and I'm sure anyone who's watching who has kids, like whenever I've been able to like set up FaceTime for like my kids to have a little bit of a natter with their grandparents, with my mum and dad especially, it just feels good to just take that pressure off as a parent, to not have to, for that small 20-minute window, not have to think about ways to entertain them, or like them saying that they need to eat again, because it's like he just eats all the time. I think it's just getting bored now. So it's nice to take that pressure off. So I'm sure that you're really helping with your friends there, Angelina. Thank you for sharing that. Stephen, how's it going, Stephen? Stephen spoke to me a few weeks ago after the first Bunker Talk, and he forgive me if I don't get this right, Stephen. I believe you are a hotel manager, and so I've referred to you a couple of times, but you're the guy who is still there running the hotel, managing staff, dealing with the anxious environment of transmission of the disease, obviously, but also the stress and the whole like logistical side of things at the moment. And I believe that the hotel you're working at is helping to look after frontline workers, which is amazing. But stop me if I'm mistaken there. I think that's you. I'm pretty sure it is. My memory might have just failed me slightly, but just fill in any gaps there, Stephen, if you're still watching. But hey, listen, this kind of thing is happening. Hotels are still working. Frontline workers are almost living their own reality at the moment, their own bubble, their own world. Almost like they are on the motorway and we're kind of sat in the services, not moving, not going anywhere, but they're still very much out there, very much moving. And it must be strange. I mean, I don't know. What's it like if you're a frontline worker right now? What is it like knowing that there's a lot of people that are just still static, just doing, very little, and you're doing everything you can at 100 miles an hour? I'm sure it would be an empowering thought, but there might also be a tag-along thought of, man, like they've got no idea. Like people like me who are sat here in my garage have no idea what it's like to be out there every day, to still be getting up every morning, to have this invisible threat everywhere that you go. What's it like? Share it. If you're a frontline, if you're any kind of key worker right now, how do you feel going out there at the moment? Sana's come back. Let's go. Let's do this. We take the restrictions seriously. I watch the news at least 3 times a day. Everything is open with restrictions, and I think that will help the economy here. A small business owner like myself, it's hard, but I follow the health office and the WHO recommendations. So what's the news like out there in Sweden? Because there was a lot of debate last time on Bunker Talk about people not watching the news here because they just don't like the way it makes them feel. They don't know who to trust, etc. So what's it like in Sweden? Do you feel like you can trust your news outlets? Do you believe they have, like, your best interests at heart, that there are no hidden agendas? Without going down the rabbit hole here, I think that if people here in the UK were to take that advice and watch the news 3 times a day, they would know more about what was going on, but would they feel more anxious? And that's an interesting one, because a lot of people, and I'm only saying this based on the data that I have, which is from last time, a lot of people were very unsure about watching the news. A lot of people just kind of keeping out of it. But then maybe that's one of the reasons why there are more problems seemingly here than in Sweden. Let's see. Thank you. And I see that you've just replied, so I'm going to go straight to you there and show that. Here we go. Yes, we can trust the specialists. Well, yeah, there's one or two people on the UK daily announcements that I think are very raw, very trustworthy. I think Chris Whitty is one of them, and I think that the lady, her name escapes me, the Irish lady, I believe she is also extremely raw in the way that she delivers her information. And the guy with the 3 names, Jonathan Van Tam, I think his name is, another great example of just giving very clear facts and advice, which is what we need. Just seen a comment on this here on Instagram from Bianca. Hi, Bianca. How are you? Hi, everyone on Instagram. Haven't forgotten about you. I would definitely feel more anxious if I watched the news that much in the beginning. However, I am okay with it now that there is more good news. Yeah, like, there's a bit of a turn going on, and let's hope. All I'm going to say on that, as someone who's hypersensitive to body language, hypersensitive to the way that things are said and the order things play out, and also knowing, because of watching every day, just being in the loop with the data and looking at other countries. By the way, I'm no scientist or politician, just a guy like you, a guy or a girl who is interested and cares about this. I really hope that the good news is real, and that it's not just setting us up for some more bad news. And I really don't want to be negative. I really want to stay positive about this, because that's my natural position. However, I have to bring an opinion to the mix here, which is, with Boris Johnson coming back last week, we are now through the curve, with lots of seemingly talking about going back and good news and I hope that it's not a way to dampen the announcement at the end of this week, which possibly could be that we're going to be in lockdown for another 3 weeks. Because my opinion, and again, I'm just a fella, not a scientist, not a politician, just a fella with one of these microphones, which I guess qualifies me. I'm only joking. But my opinion is, if you're going to give someone tough news, just fucking give them the tough news. And by the way, I don't know what's going to happen, but if it gets to it, because they're making an announcement on lockdown in the UK at the end of this week, if it gets to it and they say we're going to have to stay in this for another 3 weeks, then, that is what it is, isn't it? That is what it is. But I'd feel more comfortable if there were a shit sandwich going on, I don't know whether that's because they think that's what people need as their best interests or not. But let's just hope that it is going to remain as good news, because it does feel like there's a transition happening here in the UK, which is obviously welcome. But thanks, Bianca, for that point. Really, really interesting one there. I guess, like, I spoke to somebody about this the other day, and they were talking about the fact that they might keep their kids homeschooled until they know that it's safe, right? Now, please do let me know where your position is on this if you have children and you are thinking about keeping them out of school. I don't want to get anyone in any trouble here, but if that's you, just maybe share how you feel about that. What I said the other day when my friend told me this, I said to him, if there was a lion on the loose and that was the threat that we were dealing with, and there was this big lion, this beast, and it was just eating people and it was dangerous, and we were like, right, there's this massive lion out there, here's what we got to do about it. We've got to go and stay in our houses. We need to go into lockdown, and we need to stay indoors because it's dangerous out there. If we go outside, you might get eaten by the lion, right? Now, we would understand that threat, of course. We would understand that danger. And of course, we would stay inside. But then what if after 5, 6, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, someone said, you know what? We haven't seen the lion around very much recently. So I'll tell you what, send the kids out. Send the kids to school and let's just see what happens. I mean, the point is, the lion is still out there. And until we know the lion is no longer there, we do not know if we are safe. And I don't mean to be putting bad news on this again and negative points of view, and I get it, like I understand why it needs to move forward, I understand that. But from a danger, simply from a threat and danger point of view, which is the whole reason why we're in isolation, the whole reason why we're in lockdown is to stop the speed, right? But the danger, the threat's still there until we know it isn't, it's still there. So as a parent, where does it stand with you? Because your responsibility is to keep your children safe. Now, of course, you need to work and they need to learn and everything else. But does this just extend the philosophy of short-term sacrifice? If it is a case of a few more weeks or even a couple of months of homeschooling to ensure safety, are you willing to take that play? Are you willing to take that, or are you willing to take that risk? I don't know what I'd do. I don't know what I would do. My kids aren't old enough. They don't go to school. I've got one child who goes to nursery, but that's a little bit more flexible. But what about you? It's an interesting one, isn't it? A few more comments come through here on Facebook. Stephen. Oh, Sana, I've left your comment on the screen for ages, so we might as well resolve it. You guys should listen to our specialists. Yeah, so there you go. Tune in to the Sweden news, Stockholm Central, and get the information from the specialists over there, because it seems to be working for you guys and girls, which is great news, of course. Stephen, I watch the daily update to keep up to date and try not to watch the news as much. I think one of the problems is, thanks Stephen, with the UK media and a lot of the media is there are always it's almost like we have to make sure that people come and hear the news from us. So how can we make it more dramatic? How can we make it more fearful? How can we bring a different twist and different approach to the tale, to the story? And you just can't beat going to source, which is watching the announcements and the press conferences and then figuring out how you feel about it first before you're influenced by anyone else's point of view. And that includes friends and family. I think it's important to have your own freedom of thinking with this. There's a leadership gap in all of our lives, and the politicians tell us the rules and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But then as that gets further down towards your house, so it goes through the country, even from the UK to whether you're in England, Scotland, Ireland, or Northern Ireland, obviously. I said Ireland and Northern Ireland. Let's just include everyone. We're all here together. Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, or England. Whether you're in that whatever country, and then what region, and then what community, and then what job you have, and then what street, and then the age of your kids, like all of these things, like the further down you go and the closer you get to you, there are going to be gaps, and those gaps need to be filled with your own judgment, your own ability to approach leadership to your people, your own calling your own shots on what you believe to be the right thing to do. And it's those moments of using common sense and your education and your awareness. You don't need to be clouded by other people's twisted agendas in those situations. You need to be thinking clearly. And that's why it's a good thing to do, is to go straight to source with it. Dan, I think people will be more worried watching the news over and over again and don't like the TV putting the number of deaths on the screen all the time. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, you cannot, every time it comes on, I look at my wife, because we eat at 5 o'clock. And the first couple of weeks we were listening to the press conferences while we're eating dinner, and it's just a bit negative, So what we do is we put an ear thingy in one each, and we listen to it so the kids don't hear it. And whenever they're telling us the numbers, we just sort of look at each other and we're like, yeah, because it's chilling, isn't it? It's chilling. I mean, anyone losing their life is chilling, and it's devastating, obviously. And there's that element of it, but then what happens is that it slips through into a filter for me, which is that cannot be controlled. And so we have to understand that it's just a part of it's a necessary part of us knowing what's going on. And I guess we can use that to really understand how important it is for us to do what we need to do, and for us to feel grateful for the things that we can do and the people that are in our lives. I've said it before, and many times even in my TEDx talk, how death is contrast for us to life. And when we're around death, we tend to appreciate life more. We only really know the brightness of a light until we know how dark something is. So we can use that on a very micro level, unless of course it is hitting you personally, to understand what we can feel grateful about, and how we can embrace the simple things and the simple pleasures that we have and the people in our lives, to appreciate them more. Because I'm pretty sure that none of those, just short at the moment of 30,000 people who have passed away in the UK, I'm pretty sure none of those expected this to happen 2 months ago. And they were just living their lives, just like we are right now. So that does bring us contrast, and we can tap into that. We can embrace that it's important that we do what we're meant to do, and that we stay patient. Really is important that we stay patient, and that we can make sure that we're not in isolation emotionally, only physically, and appreciate things, you know. I'm catching up on comments, so thank you guys for your comments over on Facebook. So Angela, you must have just chipped in with this comment here just before I said it. I used a different word than you, but you said, I think the technical term is a poo sandwich, and I agree and have felt the same. Sana back again. The COVID-19 is new. It will take 2 weeks of loosening restrictions and see what happens, then 2 weeks to see the effect of it. Yep. It's slow, isn't it? Like the effect of the virus it's slow, but I mean, it is what it is, right? There's nothing I can do or say that can change the speed of how this virus behaves. But I'll tell you one thing, for teaching us to be patient, it's pretty effective, isn't it? Because we have to wait. We have to wait to know if we've got it. We have to wait to know if it's been transmitted. We have to wait to know if it's going to get worse. We have to wait to know how long we're going to get better. Then we have to wait to know how long it's going to be around for, and how much longer we need to wait for us to go back to how we want to live. We were extremely, I say we, you know, people, I'm a person, you're a person, we're all in this together. I don't like using that sort of, people do this and people do that, because I'm one of those people too. I'm a person as well, right? So who am I to say anything about what anyone does? But we weren't very patient before all of this. Everything's conditioned us to become impatient. When we want something, we want it now. We're used to getting things very, very quickly. And this is disrupting that. And so the only way that we can accept it is to be patient, and to be able to understand that things are going to take time for us to figure it out, and for us to be safe, and to get ultimately what we want. And that's a good lesson. And it slows down the speed of impatience, because impatience is getting faster and stronger every generation. So having this whole need to be patient will help put a stop to the speed that was growing. And our children, us, we will learn the importance of patience, hopefully. You know, like the kids, my kids, if they want a song on, then they're like, I want to listen to that song. They just tell Alexa, Alexa, I want to listen to Let It Go, you know, again, for the 30th time in the last hour. Okay. Is that even possible? But and I don't want to sound old or condescending to anyone here, but I'm 32 this month. when I was younger, if I wanted to listen to my favorite song, I would be in the car and I'd hope that it would come on the journey, or I would like have to wait for it to be released as a CD and go into town and buy it, or I would sit there and record it on my tape player when it came on the radio at random. And that's just a very small and very simple and ineffective almost example, but it's conditioning. This is the point I'm making. Everything that we are living through before all of this was fast, like food. I want it, there it is. I want this item, boom, next day delivery, there it is. I want to have, like, I want to go over this place here, I want to go this place, and I want to do that thing, bang, bang, done, very quickly. And the conditioning of that every day for the last probably 15 years has caused a complete change in our level of patience, what we're willing to wait for and what we're willing to be patient for. So if we can learn that from this, that's going to help us all. Stephen's hoping for a phased plan of action coming out. Having a date in mind, similar to what Ireland has done. Talking about the lion, Dan, I worry about the lion dealing with kids being stuck in a house for so long. Yeah, it's the other side of it, you know, and that goes back to being patient. Do we need to be more patient and just wait even longer and be able to do that as a short-term sacrifice to avoid the ultimate sacrifice? That's what it's about. Maybe. I think put lives before the economy, and I know it's easier said than done. Yeah, it is easier said than done, but like, you take away everything that someone has and they're still alive. They've still got the air in their lungs. That means they've still got options and they've still got choices. And if you take that away, you don't have anything else. So the economy is very important for our future, not like the immediate economy, but 5-10 years time, the kids that we see now in the schools being homeschooled, their jobs, what they end up doing, what opportunities they have for the future, what living conditions they have. This is all stuff that's happening now. With the economy could threaten in the future. You know, potentially a disruption there would make it harder for it to be easier. Potentially, I mean, all signs would point that way. Of course, we don't know. I don't know. I'm not an economist, or I'm just a fella in a garage. But I would say the economy is very, very important, but it's not as important as health. We aren't in government. We can't make these decisions. We can only talk about them. That's what Bunker Talk is about. But their job is to weigh up the risk long term, and they will know that. And they have to, and it sounds awful, but they have to be able to differentiate between short term and long term. That's just the way it is for politicians, why they do the job they do. They have to be able to see it like that. You know, it's not for me or you, unless you are one, to have an important opinion on that. Sarah, good that you're still here. I don't know how I feel about sending them back to school. I think it'll be done slowly, not fully back until September. We can't stay locked away forever. Yeah, I mean, the summer holidays are only a couple of months away. Can we push things closer to that? Is that what's going to happen? Are they going to do a couple of days a week? I don't know. Like, they've already called off the exams, haven't they? And they did that pretty early on because they knew it would be very disruptive, and the expectation and stress and everything would just be chaotic. So what is there to go back to other than normality, structure, a higher level of education? Maybe. I mean, some homeschooling is arguably going to give them more. But again, if the lion is out there, is it worth it? Rhonda, good to have you here, Rhonda. Oh, I missed a comment earlier from Michelle. Michelle, I'm really sorry. Michelle, from Indiana. It's awesome to have you here, Michelle. Got stuck in quarantine with an estranged husband. We're on okay terms, but I was beyond ready to move out. My kids, 17 and 11, had accepted and adjusted to the weekends that I stayed at my grandmother's before the lockdown, and then we're over here again. where I'm moving to eventually in the same town. Obviously, couldn't put her health at risk for my comfort. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, Michelle. So credit to you for doing that. That must be terribly difficult, but it's the right thing to do. The frustration I've had at not having my own space and not being able to move on has been challenging. Not to dump onto my kids, yeah. I'm currently in my junior year of college, trying to become a teacher. So yeah, stressful. I'm trying to concentrate on my education, trying to provide structure for my kids, and I'm working out to try and stay positive and keep the negativity low. My kids don't deserve to have to deal with my problems and everything else going on in the world. I mean, your attitude is admirable, Michelle. And this is exactly what we have to do as parents, is we have to put our kids first, and we have to give them the energy and the space and the time that they need to feel safe and secure, and to put our own needs second to that in some cases, including, I mean, man, like you were ready to move out and you had everything ready, but you've done what you have to do, which is the safest way at the moment for you to look after your family, and you know that you'll get your time, and you'll be patient now for the joy and the happiness and the freedom that you'll feel later. Less people are going to suffer by us being able to think more about others and be less selfish and be able to make things work as well as we can. So thank you for sharing that, Michelle. I apologize for not seeing it before. And I'm really glad that you shared that with us, because there may be other people out there who are in a similar position where they're in a house with a partner that they don't want to be with. And they have to do what they have to do, you know. Strange old life we're living at the moment. Thank you so much, Michelle. Rhonda, here in South Carolina, kids will not go back until next year, but I'd rather have my child at home than out where the lion is. But I do think it's hyped by the news. How do you feel about the news? I mean, over in the US, what we've been given in our news feed is just like a lot of sort of uncertainty, with different states taking different approaches and different levels of outbreak, and Donald Trump being, or the president being very foolish with some advice that he was giving about disinfectant. All right, now I don't know if anyone else saw that. I'm sure if you're in the US you saw it, but here in the UK, anyone else watched the clips of Donald Trump saying that he was, I'm just going to say what I saw. I saw a guy thinking out loud and didn't really think before he spoke. I didn't see a guy saying drink disinfectant. You're an idiot if you drink disinfectant. Full stop. I think. Sorry, but read the label on the bottle, right? That's like if someone walked up to you in the street and said, "Hey, drink bleach." Well, first of all, they wouldn't walk up to you in the street right now, but would you do it? It's like that old thing, your mum used to say, "Oh, if he jumped off a bridge, would you do it? If he jumped out a window, would you do it too?" Well, actually, no one did it. Someone just said it. Now, obviously, he is a position of authority, and that is why he should know better. That is why he should not do that. That's why that is stupid, right? But come on, people. We gotta make our own sense. I mean, we're trying to make sense of whether we should send our kids back to school or not. We should not have to make sense of whether we should drink disinfectant or not. And I think that if anyone did, then it was probably because they were dying and they just thought, fuck it, I've got no choice. It might work. I don't know. I don't know, and I probably shouldn't go down this road if I'm honest. But what is your point of view, Rhonda, being over there in the US? How do you feel about your president and what he said there? Sana is back here with another comment. Swedish elderly in their 70s walking around grocery shops, they don't seem to care. Do you think that's a good thing or not? Let me know. It's hard to sort of tell whether you think that's good or not, because if someone from the UK said that, they would be implying that they're wrong to do that and putting themselves at extreme risk. Gary, been watching the oh, here we go. We've got a comment from Dan on the screen. It's two sides of the coin. Worry about the virus and worry about job safety in the near future. Yep. That's a prime example of the micro stuff that's going on and the macro bigger picture stuff. You can't compare dying and someone you care about dying with a job. As easy as that sounds, I know you know that, but that's why it's hard. That's why it's difficult and that's why we've got to debate this. That's why we've got to talk about it. Because of course we need a job to provide, to be secure, to be safe. We need to be safe. But the reason why we're doing this is because we care that we don't want to cause people to die, which is why it's just nuts. And it's also why it's great to have the technological digital age that we have to be able to talk about this stuff. They won't talk about it like this on the daily announcements, that's for sure. We get the chance here. This is an open forum to discuss how we feel about these things. Thanks, Dan. Gary, I've been watching the protesters in the US that want to go back to work. So what's that about there, Rhonda? Rhonda said here, we do. So Rhonda wants to go back to work. What's your strongest reason, Rhonda, out of interest here? And be completely honest here. What is your strongest reason why you want to go back to work? Is it because you feel like you're safe and therefore you want to go back to work, or is it that you feel that you need to for the sake of your financial situation or whatever? Like, if you don't mind sharing that, it would be great to understand. They don't get the same support in the UK. They don't get the same support like UK, like the 80%. Yeah, okay, cool. So basically in the UK here, we've got this, we've got a few great things in place to help people. We've got a furlough system where if someone is employed, they can have 80% of their wages, up to £2,500 a month, and they can have that, but they're not allowed to work. So it's a way of supplementing that. Self-employed people will be getting the same in June, and then there's other reliefs and grants and stuff like that. But I understand it's a bit more difficult in the USA to do that. So I understand there's a level of severity there that we just wouldn't be able to comprehend here in the UK. Just notice I'm wearing my New York hoodie here, so I'm all but love for you guys. Just want to figure out what it is that you're going through. We're only seeing it from our point of view. That's why it's great to talk about it. We've got people from US, we've got people from Sweden, we've got people from Russia here. It's pretty cool, huh? Hey, everybody on LinkedIn. You're not on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram. I hope you're well. If you're watching this, hope you're safe. And feel free to join in the conversation. I know you can't see the comments, but you've got your own thread going on over here. People don't have patience anymore, Sana. Yeah. And let's have a little look here. The last few comments, and then we'll sign off. This has been a great episode of Bunker Talk, the longest one yet. Really appreciate all of you guys for being here. Angelina back again from Russia, and she is sharing this with us. I do not watch TV, especially Russian television. There are many lies and too much stress. They make too much drama for people, and it does not help people. I read general news from around the world several times a week, but also my friends from around the world tell me the news. In any case, we will know how the situation is changing. Therefore, I try to minimize the time spent on the news because I cannot influence it. But the news can affect my mood, and after that, on the people around me and my business, etc. I'd rather spend time. I'd rather better spend this time, for example, to meet you in the bunker. Yeah, it's great that you're here in the bunker, and I appreciate you being here. And I just want to, I mean, again, no idea what it's like. Never been to Russia, and I can't imagine what it would be like out there and what the news is like, what the media is like. But thank you so much for sharing. Just hope you haven't caused any problems by sharing that. You know, don't want anyone knocking on my door or anything, or giving me you've got to stop doing bunker talk because you're talking about the news here in Russia. I'm sure it'll be okay. Sana, yes, impatience doesn't exist anymore. They get it by a click. I'm 36, so I know. Yeah, so you were there in the time when we had to wait for things. When we got the internet for the first time, and it was like amazing. Compared to now, it was so slow. And it used to make that hideous noise every time it connected. And if your mum picked the phone up, it would disconnect you from it. It was that bad. But I'm sure you are too, massively grateful to have lived through that and to understand what it's like before all of this fast stuff. I think it has just gone so quick over the last like 15, 20 years, hasn't it? So Dan, back on the kids here. Why take a risk? I want to stay alive to see my kids grow. Wait till after the summer holidays, see how it goes then. Yeah, as tough as that is. It's like today we're talking, Kelly and I, about some people that we know who they're letting their kids see their grandparents. All right, and this is hard to talk about because both sides of our family, both Kelly's parents and my parents, would love nothing more than to hug our children, their grandkids right now. And we know people who have made it so, and I'm not here to judge anybody on that. It's what you feel like is your leadership gap, and you've got to call that, and it is what it is. But my personal position is that we've come this far with not. The short-term sacrifice is to hold on to the hope and the feeling of what it's going to feel like and the relief, the short-term sacrifice, holding on to that for a far greater eventuality between potentially life and death. And what I'm not saying is by doing that first initial action of sending child to grandparents is going to cause someone to die. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that necessarily, although scientifically it could. I'm not saying that would be the case. But what I am saying is that action alone, does it increase or decrease the R, which is the rate of infection? It can only increase it, because staying in stops that potential transference happening. If you're both keeping like you were for the last 6 weeks, then that's under control. That's a controlled link that does not exist, right? That is not a transferable pathway. But if you engage in that, that has increased it, because that is now a transferable pathway. So if, and it is an if, but it is possible, one of these people, human beings, is asymptomatic, so doesn't know that they've got the virus, and transmits it, right? Because they've been shopping and someone had it in the line, or they touched a rail and someone had it before them who touched the rail, and like, who knows? But if that link exists, then it increases the risk, and that's adding to the problem. And we've come so far. And as I said earlier in this rather long episode, but there's still people watching, so thanks for being here, and I really hope it's helped somehow. That it is a short-term sacrifice, and we all deserve credit, a round of applause, a pat on the back, a little bit of just internal consideration to how well we're doing right now, because it's tough and it's weird and no one enjoys it and pretend to enjoy it. And there are good things, obviously. There are opportunities, spending time with family, but even that, after a certain amount of time, and you feel like you got nowhere to go and you can't get away from it, and it's right there all the time, and it's the same thing every day. It's hard. You're doing great. We're all doing great. Got to give ourselves some credit for that and acknowledge it. That is what's going to help us to keep going. So, Michelle, might I add, having supportive friends are invaluable. Absolutely. I shared something on Instagram earlier. We are in a physical isolation right now, not an emotional one, because we have technology, because we can connect by video, because we can send messages, because we can phone people, and we can express ourselves, especially if we are feeling like we're struggling. So please take that message as my parting shot on this particular episode of Bunker Talk. You're not in an emotional isolation. you're in a physical isolation. And if you need support, reach out. Emotionally reach out, not physically, because you can't do that. You're not allowed. 2 meters at all times. But emotionally, you certainly can. And that's because we're blessed to be in a digital age, which makes that possible. Sana, Gary, Michelle, Dan, Angelina, Rhonda, Sarah, Stephen, Angela, thank you all so much for your input tonight on this episode of Bunker Talk. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys, and I really hope that you can take something positive from this, that it can help lift your spirit somehow, that you can feel a little bit more at ease, just a bit more clear in mind about what you need to do and how you need to do it. And to know, as the ultimate end of this episode, to give yourself some credit because you're doing great. All right. Keep going, stay safe and stay positive, and we will go again next week. Days go so fast. Lots happen in 24-hour windows. Let's hope the news remains good. Even if it's not, we will make good of it. All right. Thanks for being here. All the best. See ya.